share the joy of love. Good morning. Welcome to Radio Maria Ireland. Saturday morning. Gomena dia Yves. May God bless you. A lovely Irish expression. The 3rd of September and the feast today of Pope St. Gregory the Great. A great pope way back in the 7th century. A legend in his own time. And for a younger generation, we have to talk, we can't almost refer back to Pope St. John Paul II. But for the older people who are listening or watching, he was a legend. So I have a lovely guest today, Maria Bridges. Welcome to Chatechesis, Maria.
Hi, thank you. It's lovely to be here.
Fantastic. Would you have any recollections of Pope St. John Paul II?
I do. I actually met him in Rome. Yeah.
Cool.
Well, briefly, I was 8, so
you were 8.
I do remember. But yeah,
fantastic. I use him as a kind of point of reference for any of these great saints that we have coming up in the calendar, like St. Gregory the Great, because he goes obviously back to the 7th century. So, but to get a sense of what sort of caliber of dynamism, he would have been in his day in relation to liturgy, in relation to theology, in relation to reorganizing the church back in the day. Well, St. John Paul II would be a good kind of marker right there, So now I have a lovely guest, as you have discerned already, and this is part of our week, our 9 days novena. We're doing a novena just to celebrate and anticipate the birthday of Our Lady. And so we've been fishing around looking for all kinds of interesting guests to come on air with us. Yesterday we had Professor Patricia Casey. I don't know if you're familiar with Patricia Casey.
Yes, I heard her.
Psychiatrist and psychologist, and another legend of a lady, fabulous, great speaker, very sharp, and she's written a fabulous book. Mental health will be her area. So that was a fabulous Chatechesis yesterday. If you want to go back to our podcast page, you'll find all of that there, and we do hope she'll come back on air with us again. Very articulate, marvellous lady. So we've the new generation is coming in now, stepping into the breach here. So Maria, you're very welcome indeed. And what we do, as always with Chatechesis, we love to hear from you. So drop a comment, share, like, all that stuff here on social media. Facebook and YouTube is where you'll be able to look upon us and make up your mind. I see we're kind of looking up at the camera today, so I'm not sure how that's working for you as you're watching. But anyway, so drop a comment here. And even if you're watching back later on, or 6 months' time, just if you feel free to put something in, or a thumbs up, whatever you wish. Now, the numbers to call us, as always, you can give a call on the landline 014-123-456. Great number for a mathematician. 014-123-456. If you're in the north outside of Ireland, as always, +353 in front of that. And our text and WhatsApp number 089-467-2000. 089-467-2000. Again, a mathematical brain might figure out, well, that's some prime numbers, maybe some multiplications of something, and does it mean anything? I don't know. But it's the number you can text us and WhatsApp us on, and you can email us info@radiomaria.ie. Again, no pressure. Do so today, right now we're live, or do so when you're listening back, or as a podcast. Come on in and join in the conversation. So now our 9-day novena again, as we've been featuring lots of lovely guests and interesting conversations with you to help you and form you in your faith. So Maria, you are a religion teacher.
Yeah, I mostly teach maths, but yes, I have some religion classes too.
Okay, good. Which is a very brave thing, because you were in a secondary school.
Yeah, it's good though. We have good conversations, and they do want to think about, the big questions. So, good. It's been enjoyable too.
Sure.
Difficult, but enjoyable.
Yes, very important qualification. Yeah. I spent 3 years full-time as a chaplain in a VC school. What are they called now? ETB, I think, is that what they're called now? Yeah. And sort of in a mixed school. And Father, why do we have to do religion anyway? There's no exam. So my approach when you meet that, Maria, maybe a little tip, I said, well, actually there is a final exam. There is a leaving cert exam in religion, because come Judgment Day, and the textbook for that leaving cert is
the Bible.
Correct. The good book. Absolutely. And the first question on your exam paper, I just tease them. I just
mean.
Yeah, I know. The first question on the exam paper would be, well, what do you think of my book? And they're looking at me, no, don't say that. Give us guilt tripping us here.
Yeah, I'll have to get them to read it a bit, maybe.
Yes, just give them a little passage. And one last little tip, maybe just in my ministry as a priest. I said, look, if you forget everything I ever taught you, if all this was in your view a complete waste of time, just remember one passage of scripture, and I'd say John 6, which is of course the teaching on the Holy Eucharist. And I remember one Leaving Cert student, after the exam results came out, we had results this week, and well done to all the Leaving Certs for all the great results. He said, Father, guess what? John 6. I said, yes, yes.
Success.
So how is that? Can you maybe share with us a little of life in the school and teaching RE? How does that go?
Well, it's all just picking up at the moment. We're just back, so it's all hands on deck of trying to figure out exactly what we want to teach. This year we have modules, so it's been, we can sort of adjust what we are most interested in as well, and being able to teach that to the students. It's it's a mix. It's playing some games, getting to know them, and then I probably will get them to do a little bit of like Lexio at the end of my classes this year, and things like that. So a bit of everything. Yeah.
So I suppose really because you're not teaching it to exam level, you're more trying to communicate faith rather than so much doctrine. Would that be fair?
I think it's important to have a tiny bit of like these students aren't actually that well catechized. I mean, I'm not trying to be negative, but they haven't. The last time they had specifically Catholic education was primary school, so you do have to say certain things like Catholics believe this maybe, but yeah, I mean, a lot of it is just the human interactions as well. I mean, if you're able to have a conversation with them about their summer holidays, that's a first step, and then I don't know, then later on you can talk about, say, the Eucharist or something, but I think the first step is super important, just like to be able to communicate with them and love them and care for them, all that stuff first.
Sure. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think once that sort of interaction and that sort of mutual respect is built, you have a foundation to work on for sure. But
definitely I do think the doctrine is important too.
Absolutely. Which is why I would zoom right in on John 6 and say, look, at least take this away with you. But you said there's an openness there. It's not all resistance, or maybe it's a bit challenging at times.
Every student is so different, and that's like genuinely, I've taught the same class to different groups, and it's completely different experience each time. So different ones have different interests. I taught some philosophy last year, and even with that, there was some interest, some real interest, and then some people who really hated it. So, and you teach some of it, and then it depends.
Is it a bit like maths? There's some really love the numbers, and others are like, can't be doing this.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. At least with maths, they know they kind of have to learn it.
Yes. The pending examination is a great motivator. Yeah. And I remember one principal said to me, he said, if it wasn't for the exams, we wouldn't have a hope of maintaining any kind of discipline around here.
I mean, it's a pity though. I mean, I do have high ideals for education, and I mean that system now where I have to prepare people for an academic grade, but I would love if we could learn for the sake of love of learning, and that would be wonderful. But the mindset in school systems and in each student and in teaching, and I too, like, it makes sense that the mindset's there, is to learn if you have an exam and not to learn if you don't have an exam in it, and I think that is a pity.
That the system has sort of made it that way, as it were. And is it the case nowadays that the younger generation, their attention span would be relatively short, that you're almost entertaining at times to keep them?
I mean, I suppose that is definitely, you have certain, I suppose you have to take that into account, but I mean they're almost adults, though, people mostly that I'm teaching, and they're able to think, and they're able to not be on their phones too, and they're able to they're not so different than every generation before them.
Sure, very good. Very good. Yeah, that's a good approach. And to try to draw them on a little bit through that sort of respect for their own, where they're at, their own place in their own journey too. But Lexio, and many religion teachers I've met and spoken with over the years, Lexio are a little time of prayer, pure gold. because that's something that will stay with them, whatever. But and I used to make a point of that at the beginning of every class. I'd have 30 seconds of prayer. I'd have a little prayer space and a candle and a little statue and a cloth and so on. And whatever else they did or whatever else we did in class, don't mess with this moment. This is, for you. Sure. But I think, in my view, it's quite heroic teaching religion to teenagers now. It does demand great conviction, really.
It makes you think. It definitely makes you think about your own fate in a different light, and it makes you read things almost through the eyes of who you know you're going to be teaching. So you read things that you take for granted, or you were used to seeing in the faith, and then you read it and you go, how would a 16-year-old take this? Or and also, how would I answer certain questions, or how would I explain the Eucharist? Even though if I know what it is and I believe it and I have the full almost knowledge of what it is, kind of just intuitively at this point in my life, having to explain to someone who has no idea is a completely different thing. And there's many things to the faith that just feel like that. Things that they're so ingrained in my life that to try and take them out and make them to someone who's never heard of them before, that's a weird thing also to try and think of. So.
And I wonder if you tap into Carlo Acutis and that resource. Have you introduced them to that? Or?
I haven't really. I have showed some Sister Claire Crockett before.
Oh, wonderful. Perfect.
And a bit of Pier Giorgio Frassati.
Nice.
A few of the others, yeah.
Nice, yeah. I used to use, back before he was made blessed, or he was even known at all, his material on his website that he had produced for the Miracles of the Eucharist.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Terrific stuff. I printed out and handed out and said, look, I said, there it is. There's the science of it. I don't know.
I wonder what the reactions were.
Oh, very interesting. Okay. Kind of fascinating. Real blood. Yeah, they're kind of normal. Yeah, this is gross. You were eating flesh and blood. Yeah, that's right. You got it. And here's this young man, 15 years of age or whatever, and he's put all this stuff together. And look, they're all over the world, all these miracles. And I say, well, you tell me now. I'm only the priest. You tell me what's going on here. And it sort of reversed the tables a little bit. But this great resource of Pier Giorgio Frassati, fantastic story. Claire Crockett, a local homegrown story.
Exactly.
Brilliant.
It's nice to have people close to home who are similar culture, similar way of thinking, even similar humour.
Yes. And her whole background is fascinating. Her whole family, extraordinary. Well done. Yeah, good. Yeah, I found myself, these are the kind of things I sort of entertain with a small e, with So Miracle of the Eucharist. Incorrupt Bodies was another fascinating one, just because it grabs their attention. Like St. Catherine Labore and there's any number of St. Vincent de Paul, these great saints and I kind of say, well, look, again, you tell me, sort of, and phenomenal things. Lives of the Saints, Lourdes and Miracles at Lourdes, another great topic I found. I got a book from Lourdes with the actual documented miracles with all the science and everything. I said, well, look, again, what can I do for you? Can you work a miracle for us, Father? This sort of thing.
Oh, yeah.
And what miracle would you like? Oh, Father, can you make the school disappear? Tomorrow maybe. Yeah. Not today. I know, fabulous. It's terrific ministry. One thing, maybe you have this in your school too, and maybe you've brought, and I think you slightly referred to it, is helping the young people get engaged with charitable activity of some kind. Is that a feeture in school life?
Well, the last 2 years we've had COVID.
Oh, of course.
So I haven't actually, I haven't actually engaged in that so much.
Yes,
last year we made Christmas cards for the nuns. That was our charitable activity. So very small stuff, but this year, hopefully, actual speakers can come in. We can go out a bit more. Good. We're only at the beginning, but looking forward to it. It's going to be fantastic. We're going to do some cool things.
Good, great, yeah. Because my idea was that charity, get them engaged in some little level, would be a kind of stepping stone to faith. Yeah. Anyway, listen, marvellous work. I'm always delighted when I hear of good, solid RE teachers in schools, because it's the place to be.
We need more of them too.
We do. Put it out there. Listen, new people,
it's
come on.
It's a great job.
Line up for it.
I do think you're on the line. You're literally talking about your fate. It's such a in some way ideal job for someone who wants to share the faith. And yes, I know it's not just as simple as that, but it does have that as very much part of it. Yeah.
Sure. And where does all that come from for you? Because again, there must have been some good influences along the way for you.
Why I have the faith.
Yes.
That like Chesterton says, there's 1,000 reasons like why I'm Catholic, and it's hard to pinpoint. My parents are Catholic, and we would have travelled to different pilgrimage sites. I would have seen beauty as well. I would have seen things in Rome, in France. I would have I would have known that the Catholic Church is something magnificent, even if at times I was grumpy as a child, being like, why are we going to another church or something? But like, I do think that stuff, even at a young age, probably just, and then a million other reasons, like all through college, different things, different people you meet, different things you read, like reading Thomas Aquinas, like, I don't know, everything, reading philosophy, and it just ends up being, like, so from an intellectual point of view, from like a person, like from every point of view, I think it just always has really pointed to the Catholic faith. Good.
And you studied theology, I presume?
No, I studied maths.
Okay.
I studied pure maths though, so that's very idealistic and abstract, so yeah. It's almost theology.
And I was reading a book recently, or not that recently, but it's on my shelf. I could take it out if I had my hand in front of it. A mathematician arguing from maths for the existence of God, that just the beauty of numbers and the extraordinary nature of sort of the science of maths, as it were.
It's fascinating even watching videos by mathematicians and just how they speak, or even when I was in college listening to lectures, how they speak about maths, because they're in it, and even if they're not religious, they have this idea that this thing is true and this thing is beautiful, and maybe they don't get any further than that, but there is a real sense of the beauty and truth within like something like maths, within like with like lectures, but also videos online. You can watch mathematicians just talk about how much they love maths, and they talk about this feeling that maths isn't just this practical thing, but this thing that exists almost from all time. It kind of is in the mind of someone, like isn't just created but discovered, kind of exists outside of the material world. There is this sense, and that's not rare. That's fairly common, I think.
It's interesting. It has an order and beauty of its own. Yeah. It's very interesting. Because you're speaking to a mathematical, like my math background is, you're resurrecting the. So, but listen, in terms of nurturing your faith, and I was kind of teasing a little bit, and because you're involved in a group called Catholic Comment.
Yeah.
Do you want to comment on Catholic Comment?
We're just restarting it. Good. So at the moment we're not that active, but yes, I have been somewhat involved with Catholic Comment for the last 2 years maybe. But Catholic Comment are a media group basically that train Catholics to be able to talk about their faith in a way that is joyful and that brings hope, and that shows that we actually believe that the gospel is good news. So we actually, when we talk about it, it is good news, and we should know it's good news and not feel like we're always saying, sorry, I believe this. Sorry, no, I'm not. What I have to say about my faith is something that's beautiful and good, and I think Catholic Comment puts that to the forefront of when it speaks about the church or church teaching or whatever it is. It recognises, like, fundamentally what I believe and what the Catholic Church believes is something that is good. And I think that's, so it comes from that kind of
good, yeah. And with conviction, no doubt, and without fear that if it's something that's clearly defensible, if it's reasonable, if faith is reasonable, then
Oh yeah, of course. It comes from an intellectual point of view. Also comes from like just a real human point of view, not just, I don't know, arguments that aren't outside of, they're not just external arguments. They're arguments, yes, and they're rational and they're built on, it's coming from an intellectual point of view, but it's also coming from the person that's talking about the thing, that genuinely has the faith, and also has had life experiences, has had suffering, has had joy, has lived, we're all like ordinary, normal people. I suppose sometimes the Catholic faith gets presented maybe on the media or misunderstood. So it's also just trying to, showcase that we do have something good and something that is rational, something that is, that we're actually real people who actually believe it. That kind of thing.
Good, yeah. And with sort of the conviction of the person, like you say, there's a human dimension to it as well, that this is something I believe because I have the conviction to convey it. And how does it work for Catholic Common? Can anybody sign up, and do they have sort of big debating moments, or?
Well, we're not actually active at the moment, so we will be. And what will happen is people apply to be speakers, and they get trained in how to address if someone's giving a very attacking questions. What do you do? That kind of thing. Yes, there's practice sessions, but it's only a smaller group of speakers that are trained. And then if something breaks in the news and they need a Catholic, a token Catholic to talk on it, Catholic Common can step up and say, hey, we have so-and-so down in Cork that has been through something similar. Would you like him to talk about this?
Okay,
it's
good.
just a linking system of that.
Sure, and willing to step into the fray, as it were, on the radio, secular radio and TV.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's important for us to be in the world, in all our ordinary jobs, being real, praying and being Catholic and building courage and having virtue and just living the life. Life is it's a good thing, and we're part of I guess society in Ireland. So not to say we have to agree with everything, but we do have to, I think, be part of it, be part of life.
Yeah, good, yeah. And again, the idea that it's coming from the body of the church, so to speak, from the laity. It's not necessarily a priest or a bishop who's been speaking out, or the way the secular sources can sometimes caricature Catholics as just being old fuddy-duddies. That there has been, they're washed up, and of course they would think that. That there's a more objective standpoint here, and it's not unreasonable for anyone in any walk of life to say yes. And in fact, I think, as you refer to it, it's our duty to stand up for our faith, really.
Yes.
So very good. So listen, if you've just joined us, we're going to pause for a little break. We'll come back to the question of Maria appeared in the headlines there lately for all the right reasons, all the good reasons. And we'll share that with you. So stay with us. So we've got a little piece of music lined up. Again, if you want to get in touch, drop a little comment here as well, a Catholic comment. You'd be more than welcome on our Facebook and YouTube. And do send us in a text, 089 467 2000. We would love to hear from you as part of the conversation. You might have a question or two you'd like to put to Maria. A nice easy one, preferably. But I think she can cope with hard ones if it came along too. So we have a nice piece of music from our Tradoration CD. If you were listening in to our Ceol agus Crack a number of weeks ago, Father Colin Mannion, one of the Dominicans here, I think he's in Newbridge now, and Trian O'Riordan, great traditional musicians, have put together a bit of trad music with a little commentary immersed in it. So the title of the piece is Men for Our Lady, and in the light of that, I might just give a shout out who was in touch. Dennis in Kerry was in touch with us to say there's a men's rosary in Tralee, in the square in Tralee, at 1 p.m. And if you go to Human Life International, Patrick McChrystal was on with us last evening, there is a plethora of men's rosaries going on around the country for the first Saturday, of course, today. Well worth looking up their website, Human Life International. Let's see if I can get a click on it here. I can share them with you maybe after the break. But there's men's rosaries going on now all around the country. It's great news. So in the light of that, little piece of Tradoration, Men for Our Lady. Thanks, Thomas.
I lay my head on Mary's breast, as Jesus did when he was young, Mary's own little son.
The Rosary is always a source of great strength for me, and through the intercession of our Blessed Mother, she brings you to Jesus. When Mary brings you to Jesus, she's bringing you for healing.
I just think that that's just something special. And after all, she was the mother of our Lord. I think she's a great help to me anyway, and the rosary is a great help.
There's a link. It's a link with the story of Jesus. He made a promise, God made a promise, and he shows that promise through the mysteries of the Rosary. And you have to trust him. He's in your pain.
The rosary in my own personal life is very important. It's the turning of the heart and the soul to God. And I'm inclined to say, okay, she was crowned Queen of Heaven and Earth, but to me, she's still my mother.
Oh, I always had devotion to her. I always loved Our Lady. She was just like my mother, I suppose. That's the way I felt about her. I would be out in the middle of nowhere in the country, and I don't know, you just get inspired. But those times when you'd be just lost, and things that sort itself out.
I consider her my guiding light, following in the footsteps of Our Lady in some sort of way. I find that it tugs at something in there in my heart, and the tears that are flowing there sometimes, it'll leave you with a tear jerking. Long ago, with the rosary in the house at home, an atmosphere around, feeling of hope started then, and it has never stopped.
And I have found it quite consoling and peaceful, I guess, that feeling when you say the rosary. I really could feel as almost I was being hugged by her. Well, many of us have had the experience of having a good mother. We know what a mother will do for her children. And if you could try and consider Our Lady to be much, much better than our own mother. And that's what she is to each and every one of us, to each and every soul.
There are answers to prayer. I didn't believe it, but I did experience it. All our lives are guided, and we don't even know it. She's around me at times. Just the peace I have in my mind. I feel God is on my side.
Now, there's a nice track there from the Chatechesis CD, Men for Our Lady. I recognise the voice there, actually. Noel Lynch, he's a great member of the Legion of Mary. And in fact, Noel could tell his own story. He's spent a number of years in Latin America, evangelising there with the Legion, in the footsteps of the servant of God, Alfie Lamb. who was a young man who went out in his 20s to Latin America and did terrific work all over Colombia and Bolivia, and is buried in Argentina. Died before his time, but Noel followed in his footsteps. So Noel would have lifelong deep devotion to Our Lady through the Legion of Mary. So I was meant to look up all the dates for the rosaries around Ireland. I'll lose my good job here. I'm not sure if I can put my hand on it so quickly now. But anyway, you're welcome back to us. Father Eamonn here for our Chatechesis with special guest today. And apologies to all the fans of Roisin. Roisin normally sits in with me here on a Saturday. We have a bit of banter going on. So she'll be back next week. Don't worry, this is a special novena week. So we're have extra special guests. So Maria Bridges has joined us, and she's very welcome, telling us a little bit about her teaching work in secondary schools. No mean task. But you made the headlines lately, Maria, and you hadn't intended to do so, I don't think. But it was a very wonderful initiative, and in response to the Synod and the question of participating in the conversation and journey, which is what Synod means, of the Church in relation to the faith. So do you want to tell us a little bit about the whole story behind it and where it ended up?
Sure. So in having some sort of, I guess, following what was happening with the Synod party and knowing a few people more involved, or hearing their experiences of, different meetings that had been going on, and then reading certain reports that were coming out about certain preparatory documents for they had a national meeting in Athlone, and things we had been kind of engaged in just reading parts of what had been coming out from the Synod, and we realised that there was this kind of idea that they kind of used the phrase of the unanimous sense of the faithful, that agreed with certain things to do with changing church teaching. Specifically, that was a specific thing. And as young people, we realised this is just me and some friends. This isn't. It's very much a grassroots situation. Yeah. You're having a conversation. You're going, we need to do something. We need, we exist too, who are all practicing faithful Catholics, and this just seems so foreign to us. This doesn't represent our experience of the Church or our view of what church teaching is. So what we did was we tried to write a letter to the Synthesis Steering Committee and Writing Group. That was the idea, to basically let them know that there are a multitude of young people that love the Church and actually have found the Church teaching to be something that has brought them joy, has helped them, has been something that is good to their lives. So that was basically the message, just that we love the Church, and we sent it around to friends, and in the end we got 500 people young people who had signed it. And this is 500 young people, I have their name, I know what parish they go to, I have their age, this isn't some anonymous survey, this is 500 people who I have all of their diocesan and parish information on, who said, that's something that's a view that I agree with, I love the Church too. So there's 500 of us at least that signed the letter, that just wanted to express that it just wouldn't be true to write that this was the unanimous sense of the faithful. That was the aim. It's just to basically communicate with the Synthesis Committee, just so that we would be, I suppose, not just excluded from being when they talk about the faithful in the Church, that we just were hi, we're here too. This is a group of, not a group, but this many young people that are all across Ireland who are in your parishes, or in your schools, or in your workplaces that have this experience of the Church. And so we sent it, and we informed the bishops we were sending it to, just to let them know. So this got kind of picked up, and made certain headlines. And basically the headline is just because I suppose it is impressive when you go and say there's 500 young people in a maybe society where we think the young people aren't involved in the Church. You actually go, no, there's 500 people who went out of their way and we're bothered to. There's probably more. I mean,
No, for sure.
of young people who think this, but
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
500 young people who signed a letter that said, "I love the church and I love the church's teaching."
Fantastic,
Yeah.
yeah. So it kind of took a life of its own. It sort of
It
went
did, yeah.
viral in its own way,
Mhm.
its own minor way, let's say, but nonetheless took hold and captured the imagination of a lot of young people.
Mhm.
Which is good, because too often you see, I think it is the secular voices are inclined to dominate, especially those who are agitating for change, where change is very questionable, to say the least, and not possible, because simply it's the teaching of Christ that we're looking to, and the deposit of the faith and the church that we know and love. And we're quite happy with, like you say, this teaching has been hammered out for 2,000 years, and it's not ours to suddenly say, okay, well, need to change all this, and this. And interesting too that the process of the synod, it's still a journey, it's still ongoing. It's not something that the line is drawn at any point. It's an ongoing thing. But rather than succumb to kind of popular voices or popular opinion, I would hope that the synodal journey would bring us back to what's authentic and good and true of our faith, and what we value, and what leads us to the truth of Jesus Christ in the end. That and one thing they did try to emphasize, I think, in the synodal process, in the dialogue that was going on locally around the country over the past while, was to bring in groups who might otherwise have been considered marginal or on the outskirts or whatever, and to hear what they had to say. And you'd have thought that young people would be somewhere high up on that list, because you're the future of the church.
Yeah. Yeah, it somewhat sometimes can feel like we don't hold the opinions of some of those who are maybe high up involved in the synod.
Which doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and so, yes, we're young people, but actually we hold the wrong opinions, so we're too, I don't know, too traditional, or too, I don't know. And we like the church, really enjoy. I mean, and not in any. It's just that we enjoy the art of the church. We enjoy the prayers of the church. We enjoy. Sounds so. We love the Mass. We believe in the Eucharist. I mean, that's just what I mean when I say we hold to the truths of the faith. And we want to become saints, and we want to be holy, and we want to try and learn how to grow in virtue, and that is for us the bits that are most important. But we're not taking on board some very controversial church church teaching sort of ideas, and so I think our opinions aren't necessarily welcomed.
Interesting, yeah, and they lack a certain secular popularity, let's say. There's a tendency to drift towards what the latest opinion is.
That's funny. There's a Chesterton quote. I'm going to quote Chesterton many times. That says we don't want a church that changes with the world. We want a church that will change the world, and that is what our church is for.
Nice.
I mean,
yeah, we want to change with the world. Let our faith change the world. That's a nice quotation. Good. And the truth sets free. I mean, to put it in another way, really, I suppose, in sacred scripture. And all of these conversations, and where they fall short, in my view, is that they fail to reference back to the person of Christ and the church which he founded. It's like, here's what the latest popular thing says. Well, you got to have married priests, you got to have women priests, you got to have inclusion for this, that, and the next thing. And you end up scratching your head, wondering, well, hang on a second. Where does this fit in with what Christ has taught, and what our faith is, and what we have always believed, and what we practiced? And is there value in that? Or are we just going to, like my image is, we just drive it all over the cliffs of Moher and just walk away? Not so.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Sometimes it feels like when we talk about the church, it's very horizontal. What can I do? What can you do for me? Like, how do we have another prayer group or have another whatever group? But that kind of vertical, like, this is not my church specifically. This is Jesus's church. This is God's church. This is like, I'm part of, this isn't a human institution. This is a divine institution, and sometimes that gets missed, that everything is actually to do with God. And that seems so basic, but
yeah.
it does seem a bit missed.
And if we allow ourselves to listen too much to the secular voices, or those who are, we have to question, are they animated by a genuine faith and love of the church, or is this just change for the sake of change, and where will it lead us? So the conversation has to be had, and it has to be, and it's tremendous that you've kind of stepped into that and allowed others to join in with you. You obviously, all it takes is one person just to kind of lead it, and others will say, yeah, hang on a second, yeah, it
wasn't just me, it was a few others as well. I just happened to be quoted.
Get in the front line. Sure, somebody has to take the hit, I guess. No, it's well done, because it's fantastic. Is your written submission available to share?
It would be. I don't know if it's on. Yeah, it's online somewhere. I mean, it's only been online where we've shared it to the people who wanted to sign it.
Okay,
it's not on a website or anything. But
I see. Okay. Well, just in case,
not hidden.
yeah, sure. In case any listeners were interested and want to follow up to sort of read what contribution you had made,
but the submission was more. It was a letter to the synthesis. It wasn't. I mean, that's what you said. It wasn't. We weren't intentionally trying to make headlines. It wasn't to make some sort of stand in the media or make some sort of anything like that. It was actually to communicate directly with real people involved in the synthesis committee, like to have that. It was a letter to them. It wasn't a I don't know, a whatever, like a
sure, it wasn't intended to be a sort of political statement.
It's not a political statement. It's
Good. Well, listen, well done. Because it takes courage to do that, and yet the truth again speaks for itself, and no doubt there'll be a resistance. There always will be, but again we refer back to Christ and his church, and I think the Lord himself had the same trouble in his own time. Who do people say I am? What's the latest opinion poll? And they said, well, hang on a second, who do you say I am? And that's the test now at the synod. Who do we say Christ is?
That's probably the main question, actually.
Comes down to that. It comes down to that. So if you want to change the rules or set up your own church, feel free. I say this to students in school. You can try this one in class too. Go ahead, yeah. So start your own church, and let me know how you do. And I say, if you're enjoying, the gifts of the Spirit in 5 years' time, if you're seeing it flourish and produce great saints and fruitfulness, I'll join your church, no problem. But I think we've got what we want right now. Thanks. So well done.
There's a wealth of treasure in the church, with the saints, with the writings of the saints, with like art, with there's been we have a whole tradition of like really amazing things that have happened within the church. That it's a shame to sometimes forget about it. Yeah.
Sure. Well, Maria, thanks for joining us. Our time has run out. That was maybe easier, I hope, than you thought.
No hard questions.
No hard questions. No, we don't stump people here if we can avoid it. We're just interested in drawing out the gift of faith that you have. So we're very grateful. Thank you for coming in, taking the time. Not at all. Well done. And thanks to everybody listening in and tuning in as well. And if there's a link to one or two articles, then we might look them up. And if anybody's interested in finding out a little bit more, it might be a good thing to do. So now it's coming up to 12 o'clock and time for our Angelus and Midday prayer. So do please stay with us. We're going to take our leave of you on the camera, but of course we'll be continuing broadcasting here on the radio as well. So thank you indeed for your company, and look forward to chatting with you very soon. So time now for Angelus and prayer during the day.